The first reading is from Timothy 4, verses 6 to 8. As for me, the hour has come for me to be sacrificed. The time is here for me to leave this life. I have done my best in the race. I have run the full distance, and I have kept the faith. And now there is waiting for me the victory prize of being put right with God, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give me on that day. And not only to me, but to all those who wait with love for him to appear. Then Timothy 4, verses 16 to 18. No one stood by me the first time I defended myself. All deserted me. May God not count it against them. But the Lord stayed with me and gave me strength, so that I was able to proclaim the full message for all the Gentiles to hear. And I was rescued from being sentenced to death. And the Lord will rescue me from all evil and take me safely into his heavenly kingdom. To him be the glory forever and ever. Amen. The parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector. He also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and regarded others with contempt. Two men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee, standing by himself, was praying thus: God, I thank you that I am not like the other people, thieves, rogues, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give 1/10 of all my income. But the tax collector, standing far off, would not even lift up his eyes to heaven, but was beating his breast and saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his home justified rather than the other. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, but all who humble themselves will be exalted.
Now, when a new movie or film premieres in the cinema, before watching, how would you tell if it is a good film? I suppose most of us, well, I do, would look at who's the leading actors, whether the actors would have considered that possess good caliber or impressive acting skills. And if performed by A-listed actors, especially our favorites, then all the more we will easily consider it a blockbuster film. But do you ever get disappointed when you judge a book by its cover, so to speak? But today, as a continuation of last Sunday's parable of the persistent widow, Jesus presents to us a parable about two kinds of attitudes or mindsets. Well, a Pharisee stood in a temple and prayed, "Oh God, I thank you that I am not like the other, thieves, rogues, adulterers, or even like that tax collector over there. I fast twice a week. I give 1/10 of my income." Now, can I have a show of hands if you find this Pharisee hypocritical? Okay. But what makes you think so? And does anyone find him honest? But in my opinion, this Pharisee has been pretty honest. Everything he said is true to him. He has set his mind apart from others by his faithful adherence to the Mosaic law, following every commandment to the dot or the letter or the T. So he was pretty honest, or he was honestly telling God about his daily practices. However, his mindset is flawed. His prayer of gratitude may be spoken to God, but it is really about himself. He locates his righteousness entirely in his own actions and his being. I'm not greedy, I'm faithful. Unlike the tax collector, I'm honest. I fast twice a week. I give a tenth of my income. But this was his prayer. But in our present context, what if this is my prayer? What if, right? Like, oh God, I have been a faithful follower of Christ. I never miss any Sunday worship, and I offer more than 10% of my income. I'm always well dressed, unlike others who don't seem to respect you. I actively give my time to activities like in BCO or in a food pantry, since I have the means to help others. Well, I suppose if this is my prayer, my attitude will put you off. I'm so full of myself, don't I? But this is the mindset that is not pleasing to God, because it leaves little room for God in the person's heart. It is so undesirable that after urging his disciples to be persistent with their prayers using the parable of the persistent widow, Jesus told this parable, especially to the disciples who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and regarded others with contempt. Jesus' intention in telling this parable is to highlight the tax collector's humility before God. This tax collector is fully aware of that he possesses no means by which to claim any righteousness. For instead of deeds of merit, he has done much to offend God's law, as he worked with the Romans, or he worked for the Romans in collecting tax. He admits his sinfulness before God, feeling unworthy even to lift his eyes to look heavenward to God. And he stands far at the back, crying out, "Oh God, be merciful to me, a sinner." No bragging about what he has done, no complaints about what he is lacking, but simply in humility throwing himself on the mercy of God. But at the end of this parable, the Pharisee leaves the temple and returns home feeling righteous because he is full of himself. This hasn't changed. He was self-righteous when he came up, and he remains self-righteous as he goes down. The tax collector, on the other hand, leaves the temple and returns home justified. That is, accounted in the right with God, accepted by God. So in this parable reminds us of three things as followers of Christ. When we become mindful of what we do, keeping records of the good outcomes and praising ourselves for the work well done, we risk becoming self-righteous, trusting mainly in ourselves and setting God to one side. Secondly, being justified or being accounted right with God is the outcome of a genuine relationship with God instead of any good works or charitable acts. Simply because of our relationship with God. And lastly, humility and trust in God are essential as we focus on the merciful and the loving God that we worship, who embodies God's self in the person of Jesus to reconcile humanity with God. So do we all have the right mindset before God and others as we serve God in this community and beyond? Do we get actively involved in any ministry because we possess the knowledge and the skills to make people's lives better? Because we are helping and feeding the needy? Because we have the time to spare? Because we feel purposeful by the outcome? And so on. Or are we simply responding to God's calling on us to be the hands and the feet of Christ in serving people and the wider community, sharing God's love and grace? You see, when we are responding to God's call because of our intimate relationship with God, we will get involved in any ministry with humility and with genuine concern for people, especially those seeking help. Treating them as we would treat ourselves and giving them the dignity they also deserve. Therefore, Jesus is urging us to have the right attitude or mindset. We are to leave behind our reliance on our own achievements in the work or in church ministry and humbly rely on God's mercy and love. We shall diligently carry out what God calls us to do. And may we be like Paul in the first reading from 2 Timothy chapter 4, that at the end of our lives, that we will proudly say, we have kept the faith, we have done our best in the race, and we have run the full distance for God's kingdom. Amen.